Start for Trice. That's Chase, and what a start for Cincinnati. And he has the curveball for Samuva. Bijan Robinson, he's going to have his first NFL touchdown. Gibbs out of the backfield right away. Oh, yeah, there's no question that he was grabbed. They got ridiculous. They got Gibbs one-on-one with Andrew Van Ginkel in space, and that was it.
And this is, again, it's man-to-man. It's one-on-one, and he's underneath. He loses his balance. Block Bowers is one of those guys that has a – and this is –
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Fat Boys Dynasty podcast presented by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network, live on the YouTube channel. I am Bo. As you can see, no Brant this week. Brant had a scheduling conflict, which is just fine anyway, because Brant and I both like to attempt to do a My Guys episode each year. And that My Guys episode just doesn't have the same pizzazz if Brant and I are on here at the same time agreeing with each other, what each other's saying, and you know, just being copacetic the whole time. So this works out well that Brant's not here to, you know, dog me for my picks or vice versa, even though that'll happen, you know, much later after the episode. But yeah, so again, Brant and I try to be a little bit different than some other, you know, shows out there. I'm not going to come at you and say my guys for this year, Bijan Robinson, Brock Bowers, and, you know, Justin Jefferson, and try to put some original spin on it of how great those guys are going to be and sell you, you know, some line of BS. Brant and I are willing to put our foots in our mouth, and, you know, kind of come at you with some takes that maybe aren't as popular as other, but, you know, kind of get a little bit of rationale between why there are my guys. You know, so without further ado, I'm going to go into mine at some point this off season. Brant will get his out as well. The plan is for us to be back next week with our top 10 running back rankings. So I do feel like it's necessary to put out and wish everybody a happy early 4th of July. I know we're only a couple of days out from that, but for those of you that are celebrating America's freedom this Friday, happy 4th of July. All right, so getting into it, I'm going to start off with a running back that kind of fell off, you know, the bandwagon, I guess, if you will. People weren't real high on him, you know, the last couple of years in his contract with his former team. Then there was some excitement for him this offseason when he signed his, you know, free agency deal with this team. And then this team goes out and drafts a high-profile rookie running back. I'm talking about Najee Harris, now of the Los Angeles Chargers. Listen, Najee's on a 1-year deal in LA, right? There's no long-term commitment for him there. This could be a very simple 1-year deal, and he never plays for the Chargers ever again, which would be okay for me in fantasy, especially for this season, obviously. So why Najee, right? There's several different things. Najee's right now, his ADP is in the 10th round. It's late 10th in a single quarterback startup draft. You know, so there's no love for Najee right now, and rightfully so. Everybody's excited about the rookie Omarion Hampton. I just think there's going to be a little bit of pump the brakes moment for you know, a lot of folks with Omarion there in LA. John Harbaugh, the head coach of the Chargers, is, you know, as we saw at his time in the University of Michigan, he's a guy that likes to set up the run, likes to use play action passes, and really just likes to take some pressure off of you know, his quarterback, and doesn't want Herbert to have to go win it, which Herbert is capable of doing, of course. But I do think you're going to see a healthy dose of running backs this year for the Chargers. I think Najee gets plenty of work. I think Hampton does too, but I think early it's Najee. And last year, Najee finished as the RB20 in PPR, so not like it was a horrible number. And that was with Jalen Warren having a decent amount of touches there in Pittsburgh, with the peculiar game schemes that Arthur Smith puts out, that anybody else who's ever, rooted for the Atlanta Falcons feels that, all too well. But again, 17 games played for Najee, 263 attempts, 1,043 rushes, only 6 touchdowns last year, career low in touchdowns for Najee. Did add another 36 receptions, 283 yards out of the backfield. So again, Najee catches the ball out of the backfield, right? Najee's an above average pass blocking running back, which is going to see him on the field early as Omarion Hampton gets that stuff figured out. I do think there's a chance that at least to start the season, you see a 70, 30, 60, 40 split in favor of Najee. And honestly, if he has a good season, why not continue that? He's on a 1-year deal. Use him, abuse him. If you don't like him or you do like Hampton, then you move on next year. But that's for us in the fantasy community. We don't care about next year. It's this year for right now. And I think Najee is a guy that, for me, if I have an opportunity to take him at that 10th round ADP, where I've probably already gotten a lot of my playmakers and I'm getting a guy in Najee who I think is going to have a pretty darn good role the first several weeks of the season where he's going to be very relevant. I can't not do that. Again, I think the pass blocking for Najee is going to be the biggest thing that keeps him on the field early. And I think, until Hampton gets a really solid grasp on that, I think this is Najee's backfield to lose. And the one thing Najee doesn't typically do a lot is fumble. So I don't foresee him, losing work in this backfield early. I think this is going to be at worst a 50-50 split to end the season, which means Najee's still going to have, flex appeal. Because again, he's probably even if Hampton takes the lead back out of that 50%, you're still going to see Najee get somewhere around 12 carries, and 12 carries over a 17-game stretch is going to get him close, to a number that you're happy with for a fantasy flex player. So again, first my guy, Najee Harris, Los Angeles Chargers. All right, moving to my wide receiver. This one I feel like is low-hanging fruit a little bit, but it's a guy I've been high on all offseason. I've hyped up continuously for those of you that have tuned into the cast, and I'm not going to stop now. It's Jaden Higgins of the Houston Texans. Obviously their wide receiver that was drafted in the 2nd round. I think there's a solid chance that Christian Kirk is in the slot role to start the season. So in 2 wide receiver sets, it's Nico Collins, it's Jaden Higgins. I think you see a bounce back role from the Houston Texans offense, new offensive coordinator. I think CJ Stroud plays better this year. I think the offensive line will be improved a little bit. And again, they stressed in Houston, hey, we need playmakers. And, so they go out and add these Iowa State teammates, which is awesome. These two, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the situation with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. These two guys have a fishing TikTok that they go on fishing trips together. It's a hoot. They're very clearly just good friends on top of being teammates. So that should be interesting. But Sleeper does currently have Jaden Higgins' projections in. I'll have to look at mine and see where they're at. But right now, Sleeper's got Jaden at 54 receptions, 679 yards, 5 touchdowns. Listen, here's the other part of this that I think that we have to factor in. And again, we can't specifically say that Jaden Higgins is going to be healthy in the NFL, but we can say Nico Collins has never done it. All right. Nico's elite when he's on the field. Again, if you've spent any time watching this cast, Brant did have a pretty, heavy take a couple weeks back saying that he thought Nico Collins might be a bust this year at his current ADP. And if that does happen, it's because Jaden Higgins has a good year. And I do like Jaden Higgins. Definitely second fiddle, obviously, to Nico. I won't join Brant on that hill necessarily this week. But again, if Nico doesn't play a full 17 games and Jaden Higgins happens to, he's going to be the featured wide receiver in this offense. I just think that highly of Jaden Higgins. This is a guy that I said after the draft, I genuinely think year one might end up having the best rookie season out of any of these wide receivers taken. Just because I love his landing spot and his ability so much. I think it matches up so well to what Houston wants to do. And again, current ADP, 8th round in a dynasty startup. That's your wide receiver 2, 3, 4, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on when you address quarterback and tight end. And again, something else that I find very interesting is I went on Dynasty Daddy, which is a site Brant and I talk about quite a bit on here. They have a trade database that pulls all trades from across platforms involving certain players. You type their name in and it shows you some trades. The ones that I found the most in the last 2 weeks, there were several that were straight up Jaden Higgins or Juwan Jennings. And I think Juwan Jennings could be very exciting for the first half of the season until Brandon Ayuk comes back. And then at some point, Juwan Jennings, in my opinion, is going to be firmly behind Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey in pecking order. At worst for me, Jaden Higgins is third behind Mixon and Nico Collins. But again, I'd rather have the ceiling that is Jaden Higgins and the future that is Jaden Higgins over Juwan Jennings. And then the other one is DeAndre Swift, which again, I think Swift could have a good year this year. I'm more of a Roshan Johnson guy in this Ben Johnson offense. We'll see if I'm right or wrong on that. But I'm taking Jaden Higgins over both of those guys, again, just because the shelf life for a wide receiver is so long. He's got so many tools that I think are going to make him relevant for a long time. I had read someplace somebody put the comparison of a Michael Pittman that has a second gear. We've all, anybody who's ever owned Michael Pittman in fantasy or watched a Colts game, he gets the ball, he finds a way to get open, and then he gets tackled because he just can't get away from anybody. He doesn't have that next gear to get into it. Higgins is much faster than Pittman, so if he gets open, it's going to be a problem for NFL defenses. I love Jaden Higgins. I could probably spend, the next 35 minutes straight talking about just how much I think he's going to be fantasy relevant and how great I project his career to be, but I won't bore you guys with that. Again, that's why he's one of my guys. I'm passionate about Jaden Higgins. I think he's, again, I'm going to say my flag plant. Maybe this is as outlandish as Brant's Nico Collins bust take. I think Jaden Higgins is wide receiver one out of this rookie class at year's end. I really do. I know, Tedrola McMillan's out there. I know Travis Hunter's out there. I know Emeka Ibuka's out there. I'm a Jaden Higgins guy this year, year one, as far as production. I think if you get him or go trade for him, draft him, whatever, I think you're going to be very excited about his performance at year's end. I do think sleeper is probably a little low, but like I said, I can't really speak to that until I do my rankings. And then the last one that I'm equally as passionate about is Evan Ingram at my tight end position. Listen, Evan Ingram is so slept on year in and year out. And again, he did have a down year this year with injuries and woeful offense in Jacksonville, and it wasn't always fun. Did finish his tight end 33 this year in 9 games, so nothing to write home about. But that in 2023, he was tight end 2 in PPR formats. So this is, again, I think the year before that was 3, if I remember right. This is a guy that the Denver Broncos so desperately needed. They had that offense that kind of came together around Bo Nix with a bunch of ragtag wide receivers. I don't really know what else to say. Marvin Mims is, he's exciting every year. We think he's going to be something really great. He's got that speed, and he does have some flashy moments. Devon Vele, the 27-year-old COVID rookie last year, came on and had some really, impactful moments. And then you got the agent Cortland Sutton, obviously, too, but really did not have a premier tight end for Bo Nix. And again, Bo Nix appeared to be the real deal. As a guy who watched him in person carve up his favorite team last season in Denver, it definitely feels an awful lot like Bo Nix is the real deal. And again, this is coming from a guy who was completely out on Bo Nix coming out of Oregon. Just didn't think he translated well to the NFL. And again, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. Bo Nix looked really good. Last year had a great fantasy season, and I think Evan Ingram takes that to the next level. I think Evan Ingram ends up being a focal point in this offense. I think he's potentially the number 1 target for Bo Nix. And I just think at the 12th round ADP that Evan Ingram is going at, and then the trade prices people are paying for Evan Ingram right now, I'm buying all day long and twice on Sundays. He's current on Dynasty Daddy again. He's currently going. The most common trade, I saw it 7-8 times in the last week, was for a 2027 second round pick. I'm taking Evan Ingram at that all day long. All day long. I don't know what Evan Ingram is going to look like going into the 2027 season, but I know that I'm going to get a couple really good seasons out of Evan Ingram. In Denver, Sean Payton's offenses are always fun. Jimmy Graham had some success in a Sean Payton offense. And I think, again, Evan Ingram's just a guy who finds himself in those spaces in the defense. He knows where he knows where to sink down and stay away from coverage. And I just think he's going to be Bo Nix's best friend this year. I think the return on investment from Evan Ingram at either the 12th round ADP price or the trade price of the 2027 second year, the return on investment is going to be off the charts. I really do. I think Evan Ingram's probably a top 5 tight end this year, at worst top 7. All of you out there saying Darren Waller, come at me, because I'll take Evan Ingram over Darren Waller all day. Jokes aside, hopefully nobody out there is that excited about Darren Waller. I'm sure Brant and I will get into that at some point. But again, my guys episode, these are guys that I am not walking out of my draft with. I want all the shares of Najee, all the shares of Jaden Higgins, all the shares of Evan Ingram. I think all 3 of these guys provide fantasy upside this year. Early return on investment of the prices you're paying, or the draft ADP, where you're drafting them. Again, I can't speak to where Brant is. If Brant was here, maybe Brant would be reality checking me, and vice versa. It'd be interesting to see who Brant's my guys are when he gets them out. But it was just one of those weeks where it was too good to pass up without Brant being here because of some commitments. I had to get my guys out there. I don't see any way this changes over the course of the offseason, unless, maybe one of these guys gets hurt in training camp or something. Maybe we'll have to reevaluate at some point. But, I'm all in. I'm all in on Najee. I'm all in on Jaden. I'm all in on Evan Ingram. I think all these guys are going to be guys that at the end of the season, you're going to look back and say, man, I'm glad I had that guy on my team, or wish I would have had that guy on my team. Again, you're not getting the elite production out of this tight end position in Evan Ingram for anywhere cheaper than where you're getting Evan Ingram. Same with Najee. If Najee hits in LA, it's as cheap as it gets. And Jaden Higgins is just an exciting rookie. I think he's going to be a guy that takes the league by storm early and has people taking notice. So that does do it for me this week. Again, a short little solo episode. Just wanted to get with you guys this week. Hopefully, like I said, Brant's back next week, and we're back to doing top 10 running back rankings, seeing what kind of outlandish takes the 2 of us can get into. So as always, stay hungry, stay fat, my friends.